Hello and good afternoon. I'm looking forward to today's conversation, Fixing Your Picker. We're going to be talking about relationships and how to pick better relationships. And it's going to be great. But I know I'm here live, and you probably just saw a post that said on Facebook, we are not going live on Facebook. So I'm getting ready to turn off the live on Facebook. I want you to go to our YouTube channel. It is linked right now in the comments, and go and watch live. From now on, we're doing a new format where we will be only going live on our YouTube channel. This video will then be recorded and uploaded to Facebook to watch later. I'll explain more about that later, but it's due to a lot of Facebook deleting videos after 30 days. This allows you to access it longer. It also helps Call to Pieces. We can monetize our YouTube and Facebook to be able to continue to serve women. So please partner with us and go over to our YouTube channel right now. I'm clicking off. We're signing off Facebook. So if you want this conversation live and want to hear what's going to go down, because it's going to be really, really good, Dr. Debra and Joy, jump on over to YouTube. All right, y'all, we're going off, and then we're going right to YouTube. Okay, now we're only live on YouTube. Well, hello and good afternoon. We're starting our conversation here on Fixing Your Picker. Today I have Dr. Debra and Joy Forrest. Will y'all both introduce yourselves and tell who you are?
Go ahead, Dr. Debra.
I'm Dr. Debra Wingfield. I am a trainer, an educator. I'm a retired professional counselor, and I have been doing this work working with people who have been abused for over 50 years.
Wow.
And so for me, it's so important to help continue to educate you way into my retirement years.
Yes. And Dr. Debra and I have been doing the advocacy training through House of Peace Publications. We keep seeing that ghost in your background, Dr. Debra, which I just think is funny. It's kind of, that's Chuck. It's not a ghost. Anyway, so we have been doing the advocacy training through Call to Peace Ministries. I am Joy Forrest, the founder of Call to Peace Ministries, and we started this advocacy training back in 2019, and it has actually now we've had over 1,200.
Over 1,250 now.
1,250 people have taken at least one course. And so we're really, what we do is we teach people what to look for. What are the signs of abuse? And so many people, Lauren, you and I have had this discussion, so many people who get out of an abusive relationship go right back into another one. And so Dr. Debra and I have done that. You didn't marry them, but
I'm always like, where do you find them, Lauren? I don't know.
So we want to talk about talk about why does this happen so easily, and what can you do to hopefully make a difference? Because I had a checklist. I went through a program and it said 28 signs of a misogynist. So, did he play with fire as a child? I mean, I had all that. So, anyway, there are ways to tell.
We're going to tell a little bit better ways than that to check if you a lot more than if you played with fire as a child. So I'm looking forward to today's conversation and jumping in. And this is no shame too. I think we should just come into this conversation leaning in with curiosity with ourselves and learning to grow. And don't feel guilty if you've been in multiple abusive relationships. I think most people who have been through abuse are honest with themselves, have found themselves in multiple abusive relationships, because it just doesn't change overnight that you begin picking new people. After you come out of abuse, you tend to pick what feels familiar and feels safe, and you don't quite understand what safe really is and feels like. And so I'm excited to jump into today's conversation. And that is, I would like to start with this question. It's basic, but let's get there. For listeners who've not heard of coercive control, which is what we call domestic abuse, domestic violence, emotional abuse, narcissism abuse, we don't call it that, but for those joining in,
coercive control.
What is coercive control? How would you describe it? And how is it different from what most people think of as abuse?
Okay, so I'm going to jump in here right now with Evan Stark's definition. Evan Stark has written a book, Coercive Control, How Men Entrap Women in Personal Life, and he is no longer with us. He passed a couple of years ago, but he did some excellent research. And really, we're going to just touch a very tip of the iceberg today as we talk about what he was able to put together. So he defines coercive control. And if you see me looking to my left, it's on my other screen. A pattern of oppression. And he used the word oppression. He did not use the word abuse. He did not use battering. He used oppression. And in our courses, we talk a lot about oppression that's brought out in the Bible. So we're on the same page here. It's an offense to liberty. That means it's taking away your liberty as a person to make decisions for yourself, to be your own person, to figure out who you are and what you want out of your life. And it prevents women from freely developing their personhood. So I remember when I came out of coercive control relationship number 2, I was going like, I have no idea who I am. I don't have any idea of what I want in my life. And we'll talk more about how I discovered that for myself.
Thank you,
And
Dr. Oh, sorry.
yeah, it utilizes their capacities or practicing citizenship consequences they experience as entrapment. So again, the word entrapment is a real key word that we want to talk about here, because unlike what you said, Lauren, in the beginning, where we pick them, we don't pick them. They are picking us. They are entrapping us. They are taking us hostage.
Yes.
And that sounds so dramatic, yet, and it doesn't happen right away. And we talked about this in advocacy class this week. If my husband, my first husband, he became my husband later, if he had treated me like that in the first week, of our relationship, and it was a continual thing, then I probably wouldn't have stayed in it. But it's like the mind games that they play. The first time he got angry about something, I'm like, oh, I'll never do that again. I was 14 years old, right? But and he didn't do it for the longest time, because they leave this amount of time in between to confuse us, I think. But after being with him for 23 years through high school and 15 years of college and 15 years of marriage, there were thousands of things that I wouldn't do anymore because I thought, oh my goodness, he's going to blow up about this. And so it's this very much frog in boiling water kind of thing where all of a sudden you start out, you think, oh, that wasn't that bad. And then there's this long time in between. So it's very confusing to us. And again, we don't even know what to look for as well. So this is why we're here today. And so, the coercive control, when I saw a power and control wheel, it really was describing coercive control. It really is sort of the same thing, because it's all the mind things and the tactics that are non-physical. We just think it's a better way to describe what's happening, is because if you hear domestic violence, you think of punching, and so we want to use something that describes it better.
Thank you. Thank you for all that. Well, let's jump into the conversation. So I'm excited to jump into this. Why do we choose what we do? But also, that was a really good thought where you said they choose us as well, because they are, a lot of times we are being groomed and manipulated. But let's kind of look at, why do we say yes to these things? So I like that perspective a little bit better. What are some common patterns you see in people who consistently choose partners who are emotionally or coercively abusive?
Okay, so some of the things that I see is they start out and they draw us in. Think of a spider's web. They are drawing you into their web. They are pulling you in slowly so that they can put their web around you, and it gets tighter and tighter and tighter. And they use what I talk about in my book, the 4 C's. They're cunning, they're conning, they're convincing, and they're charming. And they do all of those things without you realizing what they're doing. They're very underground in their behavior. I like to use the word insidious, but a lot of people don't understand. But insidious is basically like they chip away at the person. They don't come in full force.
Right. And it's gradual. It increases over time. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
That's really helpful to understand that it's, yeah, insidious. Are y'all ready to jump to the next question? Or I'm sorry, I might take it. Okay, let's go. How do early childhood experiences, especially dysfunctional or trauma, shape someone's picker or pattern in relationships?
Well, I think that if you were used to it as a child, it's a whole lot easier to get into it as an adult. There are many people who didn't have a dysfunctional childhood who end up in these relationships as well, and it's just that it makes it more normal. And yeah, again, they come in with a great amount of shame and different things that will lend to them thinking they don't really deserve any better. So, Dr. Deborah, I'll let you piggyback on that.
Well, I think having come from being abused as a child, I had a very low self worth. I didn't think that I was worthy of someone who was a good person. I thought I had to just bow down, get married, do whatever my parents had, quote, trained me to do. And in that process, I was not thinking for myself. I was not making decisions for myself. My parents decided that I had to get married, and they put some very strict religious parameters around that. They tried to encourage someone who was going to college or had graduated from college, uh, and someone who would, quote, take care of me because I needed somebody to do that. I wasn't able to take care of myself. That was the impression I had when I was in my late teens and early 20s.
Yep.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing all that. That does make sense that we kind of choose what feels familiar. And sometimes when we feel that we don't really deserve anything different or understand what genuine love is, it's really hard to choose something differently. So I appreciate that. So, what are some psychological and emotional blind spots many people miss when evaluating someone as a potential partner?
Okay. Well, what I can tell you is I had the biggest pair of rose colored glasses on my face when I was dating, and I was looking for what my parents had dictated. I was not looking for what I wanted. I was not looking at how do I connect with this person? Is this person someone that I can have a conversation with? I was just fulfilling duties. And
Mhm.
when you fulfill duties, you don't even look at the real person. You just look at, is this person matching the image? And that was really hard for me to get out of. And I'll talk about that a little bit later, but how I got out of that.
Yeah, I really want to talk about that because I relate to that, and I know so many more can relate to that as well. Is that it's so challenging when you've been not been taught what to really look for in a relationship. You think that a relationship is supposed to look a certain way because maybe that's what you're taught in your Christian circles. You're supposed to look for, does this guy, check all the boxes according to a Christian, read their Bible daily, whatever it is my parents approve, those type of things. But really it's about how does this person make me feel? And I really want to dive more into that later in recognizing how you feel around them and how you relate to this person and how is this person making you a better person. So
Mhm.
I'm really excited to talk more about that. So Joy, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I just think we were talking about seeing it up front. I will say that one of the reasons that I think that people get so confused or they get into subsequent abusive relationships is because the abusers don't look exactly the same. Their tactics are not exactly the same. Oh, he's so different than the last one. And I've heard that and I've seen that and I've experienced that. This is totally different kind of abuse and it's very subtle
Mhm.
sometimes. And I've known women married to 3, 4, 5 times and abusive every time, but he was so different and he seemed so much kinder. And like Dr. Deborah says, so charming. And so, but there really are things that we can look for. And it's like you both have said, we are not taught that. We're not taught what healthy looks like, especially if we grew up in a a less healthy home. So, and again, in our Christian circles, sometimes I think about some of the ladies' Bible studies I've done that have gone back and like looked at them in the lens of what I lived through, and saw that it was really supporting me staying in that kind of awful, relationship, and bowing down, even bowing down to him in the name of submission. So yeah,
Yeah.
to see that.
And you
Well,
get married for life. You're not supposed, and uh,
Wait, is that your? There's a ringing. Yeah, real loud.
I didn't realize it showed up in here. Sorry, that is my
Somebody. Yeah, somebody. It just sounds like a timer or something. It's ringing really loudly. So
so yeah. So one of the things that happens is we just, as I said in class today, we go along to get along because we think we are supposed to. There's this message growing up, messages from society. Oh, this is the way love is. And I can tell you right now, it's not a Hallmark movie.
yes, it's not. Yeah.
It's a lot of work, but both people have to be working at it. And I grew up thinking that it was my responsibility to make the relationship work. And if things weren't working, then I had to try harder. And we see lots and lots of women that echo that sentiment.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. And I really want to jump in here to the red flags section. I think a lot of people are probably looking forward to that and talking about those things. And I want to start a little bit with finishing off where we were, though, because I think so many times women, and I think Dr. Deborah, you were especially alluding to this as well in your conversation, get so focused on looking for red flags that they really miss them because they're way too focused on red flags. And you're probably like, what in the world does that mean? Those who are watching. Sometimes you get so focused on looking at what's going on in the relationship that you're not paying attention to how is this relationship making me feel? Do I feel seen? Do I feel understood? Do I feel respected? Instead, we're just making sure they don't have all these black and white things. Dr. Deborah, could you talk a little bit about that before we jump into the red flags? 'Cause I've heard you allude to that of not knowing what a safe relationship really felt like.
Okay, so when it comes down to a safe relationship, what we want to look at is how can we trust this person? Are they trustworthy? Do they keep their word? Do they make excuses? That's when I start hearing excuse after excuse after excuse, that's a red flag for me. Now, it wasn't before. I just always gave in and said, oh, I used my empathetic personhood to say, oh, well, I'll forgive you. I'll forgive you. I'll forgive you. I'll forget about all these things that you have done because it's my job to keep this relationship going. And it's really hard to come out of that and say, okay, well, maybe the next guy won't be like this. And I still haven't done my own work. So when I started doing my own work and doing my own healing, then I was able to flip the script. But until I focused on healing myself instead of trying to fix him and all the things that were going on with him, I was still just drawn into that relationship and pulled further and further into that web.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense. So what you're saying is, and I want to clarify this, you're saying that instead of focusing as women on their problems and what they have going on and trying to maintain that relationship and feel responsible for it, you begin focusing on yourself and your own healing and your own relationship journey. Is that what you're clear?
Right. And
Wow.
and when you shift that 180 degrees to focus on yourself, and I know we have all kinds of things that we learn in the church and things that we learn in society about, it's self-centered to focus on your own healing. Well, that's wrong as well, because the only way that you do fix your picker is to fix yourself. We
Yes.
have no power over the other person.
And that kind of leads me into a really good point. Is something I dropped in the comments, and that is our advocacy course. And I just want to give a little plug for that. That is one of the ways you can really begin working on yourself is when you understand coercive control and can grieve what you've been through and walk through. Would you briefly give a brief plug for how women that have been survivors of domestic abuse have benefited from the advocacy course in their healing journey?
Well, we get all kinds of testimonials from women. They come through sometimes in emails to us in private, they come through in their responses, but they're saying, I went through this course the first time thinking I was going to be an advocate, but what I did is I healed myself. I learned all the things that were going on with me. And we just started our course cycle again 2 weeks ago, and I've already started hearing from people. Wow, you just clarified so much of what I went through, and you just helped me understand so much of how my life was being controlled by him. And I had no agency, I had no ability to speak for myself.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really powerful. Sorry, I was trying to drop it's in the comments. I was trying to drop it on the screen too. But you can register at any time, y'all. It's not too late. They just started a new course 2 weeks ago, but you can jump right in. So if you're watching this today, please jump in, and then we're getting ready to jump right back into red flags, and it's going to get really good. So hang on. Joy, did you want to say something too?
Oh, I was just going to say, I think that the advocacy training, it helps people to understand what they've been through. And then we at Call to Peace Ministries have support groups too that help, that work on specific healing aspects. And of course, you want to have a good counselor or therapist who understands coercive control. It's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, and a lot of us have trauma. And so we talk about the healing from trauma in both of those, in the advocacy as well as the support groups. So I think we provide like a whole big offering for people who have been through these abusive kinds of relationships. And um, we see a lot of people coming out. They come in one person and they leave somebody completely different in a good way. Yeah.
Mhm.
Awesome.
And yes, and we do offer some scholarships, so we don't want money to hold people back from being in those courses.
Yeah.
We want
Absolutely.
to get that to you.
Yes, and I just put a link here across the screen too. I think you can see it where you can go and learn more about advocacy course. So let's jump back into red flags because I am really looking forward to this. We delve into this because I think a lot of women too. Okay, we've learned first, you got to focus on yourself. That is really important. Let's say focused on my healing. I'm doing well. I think I'm really ready to jump back into this whole dating thing, getting to know people, maybe it's even friendships. But what are some common patterns that you see? Wait, I'm sorry. What are some common red flags that people often miss, maybe that we should notice?
Well, we want to watch out for him isolating her. That's like one of the first things is no, you can't talk to this person, or um, you can't be in a relationship with this person. My first husband told me that when I met someone and started to develop a friendship with her, that I couldn't be in a friendship with her because she wasn't our kind of people. And I'm going like, okay, I'm 21 and I can't choose to be in a relationship with this person. And in order to appease him, my friend and I talked about it, and we decided that our marriages were more important than our friendship. And if
Mm-hmm.
that were to happen today, which it won't, I mean, Chuck is not going to do that. But if that were to happen today, I would go, we're done. I have
Yeah.
a right to choose who I want to be friends with. I have a right to choose who in my family I want to be connected with. I have a right to choose what I want to do with my life. And I'll
Yes.
stop there because I have lots of choices.
I love that. And thank you for highlighting the choices. And even I want to say to the women here today, if a man starts talking about your family member or feels like, oh, what they're just making, I don't like the way they treat you. I feel like they should maybe be more generous, or I feel they should listen to you more. I don't think you should see them. That's a red flag. I don't care if they're pointing out that they think this person hurts you or not. You are an adult and you get to choose how you relate to your family. Anytime they start pulling you away from them or pulling out what you don't like. That's why it's so important to be focused on your healing, because you know what's healthy for you and what's not, and somebody else doesn't get to determine that for you.
Yeah. So another classic is, oh, I want to move to this place across the country, that they take you away from your support system. They take you away from your family. They take you away from what you're doing, and you just have to comply. And that was what happened in my first marriage. We were married like 3 months, and then he graduated from college and he said, I've got a job and it's on the other side of the country. And so we're moving. And I would not do that today.
Yeah, no.
But
So
Near your
I'm
porch.
going to say, I think too, like if you had a good partnership, like, we don't walk away from a marriage that is healthy, right? And in a healthy marriage, then and we are even willing to work on marriages that have problems. So it's when it's destructive and oppressive to the point that you aren't able to even make decisions, then that's going to be, very, very problematic, and so just the fact that you don't have a voice is a big concern. So for me, and I know that in Christian marriages, it's something that we say we want to work on it, but then you've got to find somebody who is versed in coercive control, and they're going to let you know. Some people they don't want to change. They're not humble enough to change. And so we learned this as we talk about, even dealing with churches in Dan Beck's book, that when the ones who are teachable versus the ones who are not. Now, so I know that for me, I probably, would continue to seek help. But a lot of us, it takes a long time until we become like just a fraction of who we were before. That's it. So when you're starting to lose the person that God created you to be, you've lost all your agency, you've lost your voice altogether. That is when we're talking that it's become destructive. And I mean, it's bad for your health. You just feel like you're being destroyed inside and out. And so we're talking about that kind of level, not something like a one-time thing, but it's also a real pattern. And as we're talking about these red flags, one of the ones that I see the most is this coming on too quickly. Like they will come in and try to sweep you off your feet and they start talking marriage really early on in the relationship.
And that can be gentle too. Like, pay attention. It doesn't have to be like, I want to marry you on the first date, but it could be like, by the way, I renewed my apartment for 11 months because I want to be with my person. And they're telling you this on a first date. That's a red flag too. They're moving you quickly,
Yes.
letting you know where they are. They may not use, that's what
Yes.
I'm looking for, is not the black and white, but how fast are they trying to fast track this relationship? Are they putting timelines on it? Or they feel that God's going to provide them this person at this X amount of time? I just want to clarify that, because it's not always, we look for the big things like it looks like a shark, and it's not. You got to pay attention to those subtle things that they're saying.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Amen.
and we do see that where, oh, I love you so much. You're my soulmate. I know we're going to have a wonderful life together. And, that's the second date.
Yeah. Or I told my children about you because I'm so sure about you on the second date. Yeah, all the things, they're red flags. Red flags. Do not integrate women. I will say right now, the red flag, do not integrate your families into dating. Please don't do that for the sake of your children. Keep it separate for a very long time, 6 to 9 months, I would highly recommend. And
Yeah.
any man that doesn't view it that way probably really isn't emotionally healthy if they're immersing their children into your relationship early. So just going to throw that out there.
Yeah, and speaking of time, so our friend Georgia Schaefer, said that she got some good advice from, I guess, a counselor, therapist. No, I think it was Norm Wright, who said you should, when you're dating someone, at least date for 2 years. And she was engaged, and it was right at the 2 year mark that she recognized or discovered some things. So jumping into a new relationship. And that comes from, like, I'd say that coming out of the abuse, you feel like you need to be in a relationship almost. You're really not healthy enough for one until you don't feel like you need to be in one. And you have to have this satisfaction within yourself, within your relationship with God. And so um, just taking time to really get to know the person as a friend. Like, if you can be friends first, then I think you'll see that person as they are, like with no expectations of anything romantic or sexual at all. Then that is going to, I've seen the healthiest relationships that I've seen, they started out as good friendship, right?
Right.
Yes.
So I want to talk about that a minute, because this is a way that you can use as a thermometer to see if this person is willing to be in a healthy relationship with you.
Ooh.
And so um, Charles Whitfield wrote in one of his books, share a little bit about yourself and then see if the other person shares that same amount and then adds a little bit about themselves before you share more about yourself. And keep that back and forth. If you have, I was thinking about this last night. If you have someone who sits there and listens to you and is so focused on you and asking you questions about your life, and you walk away from that date and you know nothing about that person, that's a red flag.
Oh. And as women, we tend to think, wow, he's just so into me and somebody wants to hear my story and somebody really cares about me. But it's like you said, what are they sharing about their lives and how are they talking about their past relationships? How do they share those things? What level do they go to? Is everything just very are they very integrated with themselves? Like you have to be an integrated person and done your work to be able to talk about your emotions and talk about your heart and your soul.
Yeah, there's a difference between talking about your emotions and talking about yourself, because they can talk about themselves ad nauseum.
Yes.
So I'm just gonna say.
Yes, it's Charmin. We're also doing a dating conversation with them end of the month, Georgia and Charmin and Tabitha. But
Yeah.
it is very important to hear how they communicate about their emotions, not themselves, not their grand gestures of what they've done in life or what they've succeeded, but at that. And then I want to talk about this too, because I think this is really important. How do they talk about their past relationships? What would you say, Dr. This is what inspired this whole conversation for me, is meaning somebody said, oh, by the way, I was abused. Don't sound like a victim. I was abused. And they proceeded to tell me their ex was a narcissist. I actually busted out laughing. I tried not to. I couldn't help it,
It's
Dr.
hard to.
I couldn't help it. And I said, I'm so sorry. It's just, I can't help it. I'm very sorry. But then told me that they knew because I said, well, what qualities made you think that? They said, oh, I know because I got my master's from seminary and I learned about personality disorders and she fit the bill. So I want to talk about that. That ended up very badly. Just go say the person is not healthy. But I'm going to help other women out here. How do they talk about their ex? Because yes, we want to be sympathetic because maybe we've been abused and we think, well, they were abused too. So maybe I should give them some grace or think about how other women talk about it. How should they talk about it without us removing our filters of we've been abused, so giving them empathy. If they have been abused or cheated on, how should they talk about that? What should that look like? How should they take accountability? And I really want to hear that from y'all both.
Go ahead, Joy.
Ah, so I'm going to say this first of all, because as this is going on, I'm thinking, like, all of these are generalities. You could find somebody that actually is an exception to all of this, right? But yes, it is usually unhealthy, and you're going to see that they were the victims quite often in those relationships. I know that. I heard that a lot. I've heard that a lot from abusive people, that, everybody that's been around them their whole life has been abusive to them from the time. I remember my first husband telling me about how kids picked on him in the 8th grade. I mean, and it was like scarred for life from that. And, so they will have this almost like a victim mentality. But you're going to see, I think, a little bit of a mix of all of this. Sometimes they can seem very good. They can seem like they really are caring, and they're talking in a healthy way about their feelings because they know how to act. So these are just generalities, y'all. We're not giving you the answers. And this is when you see that, run, because you might not see it all for a while. It can be so subtle. But yes, and I think that you saw it, though, when they're uh, to me, whenever they're claiming that they were a victim of a narcissist or whatever it may be, that is usually a red flag for me, for sure.
Yes, but I think there is I think there is situations, and I think that's where we have to look at it ourselves too, as survivors, is when we're healed, we talk about things differently. I would never say, "Oh, I don't mean to sound like a victim, I was abused." I would be able to define why I ended up in an abusive relationship. I'm not going to tell you that on the first or second date, but I know why I ended up there. I know what I have, the work I've done to prevent that again. I know how the areas where I struggled and why I stayed. So, what does it look like from a man's perspective? I think whenever somebody can't define those things, they're not healed and they shouldn't be in a relationship under any circumstances, like for a man or a woman. Like you have to know how you ended up here and how you've walked through that. But what would be a healthy way to talk about it? I guess is what I'm asking from a man's perspective. Because if you're dating and you're dating men that are our age and older, they have a past. So, what does that look like in a
Mhm.
healthy situation?
So I would be looking for, how do you describe how that relationship started and what led to the ending of that relationship? Excuse me. So if he starts taking all the blame for ending the relationship, then that tells me, well, he's just trying to play poor me. If he puts it on her and says she was the one that ended the relationship, and he has no clear idea why she ended the relationship, I would wonder about that, because when a relationship is ending, there are certain things that people talk about. And it's been a long time, so I don't remember all of those things. But, we talk about what is not working in this relationship and why I need to move on. And if he says what's not working in the relationship and shifts all the blame on her and takes no responsibility, no accountability for his part, to me, that's a red flag.
Wow, that's really helpful. So it's identifying those conversations. I like what somebody else said is like understanding, well, we didn't work well through conflict or those type of things. They knew what was happening to break down the relationship. Where if they said, she just didn't like me anymore, and I don't know why, that's kind of more of a direct red flag. And I see a lot of women that excuse those type things and end up in bad situations. So that's really helpful, is looking to more details of why.
Yeah. And I will say too, really being careful about what you share, little bits at a time, going back to that,
Yeah.
because they will take an abusive person and a coercively controlling person will take that information and they will use it against you in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And so even if you let them know you were a victim in the past, they go, oh, good. She's used to it or whatever. Who knows?
She's
So,
vulnerable, right?
yes. Yeah. All
Yes,
right.
absolutely. No, I think that's very important to hold your story. Not everybody has access to your story. And it's the same with the dating relationship. Just because you're meeting somebody doesn't mean they have access to your story and who you are. So I really appreciate you saying that. And so I want to kind of end it with this question. Somebody's talking about trusting themselves, and I told them we would answer that. And so I'm kind of tying our last question into that. And that is, how can someone develop a healthy internal compass for love and partnership, especially if they grew up around dysfunction? How do we begin to trust ourselves? All of the things.
Well, I'll start. I see
Go
you looking
ahead.
at me. I would say that, becoming a learner yourself, learning what healthy looks like. I love Leslie Vernick's core stuff, her core strength, and building your core strength up. And learning how to set boundaries in relationships and having healthy other kinds of relationships before you dive into something that's more romantic. You know, a lot of times when we've been through abusive relationships, we've lost most of our community. We end up getting isolated from our community, and it's harder for some people, especially, to make friends and to have community. So being a part of a good community is important. Being able to have those relationships where when something uncomfortable happens, that you know how to address it. You go to that person, you learn how to work things out. And if you can't do that in a friendship, then you shouldn't be getting into a marriage
Mhm.
with knowing how to do those things. So that is really important. I think that would be my top thing for being prepared. After, again, going through that healing and getting to that point of practicing healthy relationship practices.
Oh, I
And
see. Oh, great. Go ahead. I see a good question I want to end with too. So I
okay.
saw. So I
So
was.
part of healing is finding a good therapist and a good way to communicate with that therapist. And I found journaling was very helpful. And then I take my journal to my therapy appointments, and my therapist would listen to how I had processed during the week in my journal what was going on. And she was able to give me feedback and to validate. It also comes from finding a good community, like Joy was talking about, build, building out your support system, finding people that you can talk to. And I know somebody asked about trust. How do you learn to trust yourself? First of all, you have to learn who you are. And learning who I was meant asking myself, what do I want to be? What do I want to have? What do I want to do in my life? And then seeking out and pursuing that for me, not pursuing that for anyone else, not trying to prove myself to anyone else. I was just pursuing my selfhood. And as I pursued that, I gained my voice. I gained the ability to stand up and speak out for me. And it takes time.
Yeah.
And if you're in a relationship with someone where you can't speak your own feelings, you can't speak your own voice, then you're in a problem situation.
Mm.
Yeah. I do. I know that for me, a huge part of my healing process was actually healing my relationship with God first, too. So, um, yeah. So just knowing him and knowing who you were to be in him, uh, that there's so much healing in that as well. All right, so we've had a noisy, no, I don't even know what it. We had some kind of like woo sounds, and it's been an interesting one. I hope everybody got what was said, and some great. You said that you want to ask this question that was in the chat, right?
Yes, somebody asked. I think I understand what they're asking, and I do think this is really important. I feel like what they're asking is how do I discern between the difference of what I want and what is healthy and what is not. And I think maybe what this person is trying to ask, and I'm sorry if I'm getting this all wrong, is sometimes when we've been out of abusive relationships, we are very attracted to what's not healthy, even though we know it's not healthy. It feels good. Something about it's attractive. Can you
Hmm.
talk about that a little bit? Why are we attracted to relationships that we know, maybe we don't know, maybe we do know, but they feel so much different?
I would think that I'm going to say that a lot of them start with what I would sort of like flattery. They make us feel wanted. They make us feel loved. They make us feel validated. They might even say, "Oh, I know what you've been through, and I'm sorry because of something like that happened to me." And so people, we like that kind of thing. Actually, the Bible talks a lot about flattery. Because I do know that a lot of these guys come on with heavy flattery, and that's something to be aware of as well. But just it is comfortable because it's what you're used to. I remember my daughters both ended up, having abusive relationships. My one daughter she hasn't been married, but she now knows how to recognize it. But in the beginning, she went out with this guy, and I thought, gosh, he's great. He's like stable, and I'm thinking, oh, let this be the one. And she comes back, she goes, oh, he was so boring, because she was used to living on adrenaline from growing up in our family with the blow ups with the dad. And so it's also almost more exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I did in my healing was actually put at the top of my page, how can I become my own Prince Charming instead of looking for Prince Charming to make me feel good? How do I make me feel good? What are the things I want to do? It's writing a book, it's painting a painting, it's riding horses, it's getting out there and supporting my children. How can you do those things that fill your heart and you're not dependent on someone else to fill your heart? And that's how you begin to build that trust that you can make good decisions.
Wow.
And let the Lord, he can fill your heart, and he doesn't hurt. So yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that was really good. I really appreciate that. I think what you both shared is so important. It's so important to know who you are and where you're going in life. Who are you? What brings you joy? And what are your passions in pursuing those with the Lord? Because then it's you're not finding your joy and completeness from a relationship. And I think that begins to make boring not feel as bad, the safe not feel as boring, whatever it is, because you're looking for a partner that also has a life too and is coming alongside you versus somebody that's seeking to heal these broken wounds. So I just appreciate everything you share. This has been an excellent conversation. I feel like it's really laid a foundation for understanding how we choose people who aren't healthy and how to make different choices. So thank you for your time today. As we mentioned, the advocacy course, and we talked about that in the middle of here, you can come learn more about that. It's a great way for healing. There is links in the comments, so please go ahead and check that out. We would love to have you be part of that. And thank you guys for your time today. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. Bye,
Bye.
Lauren.